The homes of a Chinese race fated to fade away and take with them an Aboriginal life unchanged for 1,000 years. The boat people of Hong Kong live within a liquid Casbah, never touching land, serviced by hawker boats, tended by waterborne barbers and paddling priests. In this vast sea city, fishermen seek escape within opium boats, and beggar sampans clamour round restaurants. There are floating theatres for festival days, brothels or flower boats with sing-song girls, even sombre little coffin boats to carry old water gypsies to their final rest on a land which spurned them in life. In the first half of this century, Hong Kong's floating population grew to 100,000. It's the size of York or Oxford. 6,000 boats, from squat sampans where perhaps 10 people live out their lives, to proud ocean-going cargo junks populated by an aristocratic family or two, or three. There are probably 90 people living in every Noah's Ark, amid lots of floating grandmothers. In the past 25 years, Hong Kong's fishing fleet has halved to just over 5,000 boats, yet each catches 4 times more fish. For these days, butterfly wing sails are just serene ornaments above powerful diesel engines. Few junks now glide silent upon the ocean, powered only by the winds of the China seas. These are the only people who may travel freely between this colony and communist China. For they're fishermen, the last true hunters who mark the seasons not by changes in the landscape, but by the passage of shoals of fish. Indifferent to communism or capitalism, they're licensed on both sides of the bamboo curtain. Yet still worried that showing their faces to us may get them into trouble in another place. For centuries, the only water people on land were young girls apprenticed as concubines. But today, boat people of all ages are dispersing and going ashore, breaking that pattern of living which bound them to the sea. Some go by inclination, for this is the first generation who just don't want to be sea gypsies. For the young expects things the rest of us take for granted, like sanitation and schooling, a corner cafe, and some small privacy. Others leave the sea by order because the resettlement people in their wisdom believe they'll be better off ashore and in factories, away from the harsh life of their ancestors. Presiding over the dissolution of this race, Ib Peterson, Assistant Director of Hong Kong's Agriculture and Fish Department.
The water people in those days were really living on their boats as whole families. They've tended in the past 10-15 years to go ashore, and a very large number of them, probably about half, perhaps even more than that, living ashore now. Certainly the number of active fishing junks has dropped from those years, from roughly 10,000 vessels to about 5,000 now, just over 5,000. They're also very much more efficient vessels, and the number of people actually on the vessels also dropped.
Those who've gone ashore, who you've resettled, have they resisted it?
As a group of people who were not used to moving on land, there were difficulties which other people probably wouldn't find. One of the first groups we settled up in the New Territories, in one of the remote areas, found it certainly very strange to go ashore. And the older folks built themselves decks inside their own houses, and even provided the decks with hatches so that they could stow their belongings underneath the deck. This took some time to get over. This you don't find anymore.
What about the education of the children? Does that present any problems?
When we first began in 1945-46, we had virtually 100% illiteracy amongst the water people, and particularly amongst fishermen. One of the difficulties was really that fishermen were so frightened of land people that you couldn't possibly get any fishermen's children into a normal land school.
Why were they frightened of them? Because they were bigger and stronger?
There was a built-in mistrust which goes back many centuries.
What sort of people are the boat people?
They differ, I think, from the average chap ashore by being somewhat simpler, not less intelligent, in fact, being very intelligent fishermen, but much more simple in their outlook, conditioned, I think, by the need to survive in a far more difficult environment than the chap ashore.
So the chaps ashore came to regard these boat people as lowly untouchables who spoke a strange dialect and worshipped different gods, who were believed to have 6 toes on each foot. They were barred from intermarriage with the superior land people, and their children, banned from village schools, grew up afloat, sure-footed, almost 4-footed. Boat people never wear shoes, never sit on chairs. They squat. And that's not a pet, that's an edible watchdog being fattened for some nourishing winter meal. So excluded from life ashore, the boat people became social exiles. Scornful landsmen called them the Tanka, the egg people, for never having money, that's how they paid their taxes. Hardy, self-sufficient folk, they turned their eyes towards the more hospitable ocean, which has been their life until today.
Well, of course, my own work is really dedicated to getting them ashore, and we...
It's sad in a way.
Yes, very much so, but this is the price of progress, I suppose. In sentimental terms, it's of course unfortunate. A very picturesque section of Hong Kong scenery is going to go.
It's not so much their picturesque quality, it's their traditions and their way of life.
Oh yes, that is important also. They will become, little by little, land people. And the characteristics of the boat people, from this very long time, being segregated from the land people, will go. We must remember that while they are living on their boats, they are being deprived of many of the things that we who live on shore take for granted. Education is a very difficult one to carry out when you are floating and working at sea with the children. Children have to attend school. The average chap living on a boat has realized his family's future is with education, and he's very, very keen to get his children ashore to be educated.
See, I'm told that the young girls want miniskirts and the boys get seasick.
Yes, there certainly are sectors of the fishing community even in Hong Kong that can't go very far out to sea, and they do get seasick, yes.
So how many years do you give them?
Well, this particular crystal ball is a little unclear, but I should think that in the next 10-15 years, the people that live on board will be mainly people who will have to live on board in terms of servicing the fleet that comes in, the commercial fleet that comes into Hong Kong, lighters and that sort of thing. Rather than
everybody else will be in these resettlement blocks.
They will be ashore one way or another.
When they'll exchange their overcrowded floating city for a more sanitary but equally overcrowded resettlement block. A vertical slum flying bright banners of laundry from every window. But at least ashore there'll be someone's concern. No longer untouchables, but under the wing of some eternal missionary like Mrs. Elsie Elliott from Newcastle. She's lived here for 20 years and been an urban councillor for 10. As the conscience of Hong Kong, she's the gadfly who's antagonized everyone in authority, but her constituents start queuing at 5 a.m. to air grievances at one of her weekly surgeries.
I'm just trying to do what I can for people that I think need help, that's all. I suppose I sting the government now and again, and they don't like it.
Now, you see, you're patently and obviously a very good woman indeed.
Oh, thank you.
But it does seem that, for example, one comment I've heard is that you've got a great heart but a gullible ear.
Well, that would be a government servant or a policeman who told you that.
Really?
Because I'm told so many things of what goes on in Hong Kong that I've been able to build up what I would consider a really true picture. And it pays the government servant to query my credibility, because that glosses over their faults, you see. And when I talk about corruption, for example, you can ask anybody in the street, the people all know about corruption. But the government servant will say, oh, she listens to anybody, because they don't want anybody outside to know just how bad corruption is here. Young people today are beginning to speak up. In the past, the young people wouldn't dare to speak. And there were too many people involved in, or frightened by black societies. They dare not speak. But now...
What's a black society?
Oh, gangsters.
Really?
And wherever you get police involvement, you also get the black society problem. And a lot of people would be afraid to speak up because of officialdom. But now the young people in the colleges are getting very brave. They're very often threatened, you know, you won't get a job when you leave college. But they're beginning to snap their fingers even at that.
Now, are you suggesting that the corruption is a Chinese tray.
No, this is another lie of the government.
The British civil service is normally impeccable today
Yes,
at
I
home.
agree. I agree. I
Well, now
never
it's the
found
same
corruption
sort
in
of
Britain.
person who's come out here. Why
Yes.
should they change when they arrive here?
Well, many of them are not the same kind of person. Many of them have been in colonial service all their lives. And these are the worst. The ones who come out on contract are usually disgusted and go home after their first contract, won't come back again.
I mean, colonial service is a corrosive influence.
Oh, absolutely. You have to be one of the boys, you know. You join in with the boys, you drink with the boys, you take your cut back with the boys and defend them whatever they do. You just have to express any sort of sympathy with poor people here and you're labelled red. Of course, that's one way of destroying you.
Well, you
That's the same
seem
anyway.
to be sustaining yourself quite well under these criticisms.
Well, a great deal of effort has been made to destroy me. I was framed in 1966 during the riots, you know.
Framed?
Framed, yes. The police got some boys who were involved in the riots, made them make statements to say that I was paying them $5,000 to throw stones. Well, I didn't know those boys, and when they stood in the riot inquiry in the witness box, they were confronted with their statements about me, you see, and they were asked, did you write these statements about Mrs. Elliot? And they said yes. Are they true? And they said no. Why did you write them? The police beat us till we wrote them.
You see, a lot of people see communists under their beds. It sounds to me as though you see policemen under yours.
No, not really. I don't think so. People try to make out I have some sort of allergy against police. But why should I? I've known policemen in England and they've been my friends. You only judge people on their performance.
Of course, in an imperfect world, I suppose dissatisfaction is not hard to find. And nobody's going to come to one of your surgeries and say, the policemen are marvellous and I'm very happy, are they?
Well, they do, in fact. They don't like to make a charge against the policeman because they're afraid.
Too many people, not enough space. For Hong Kong draws the world's boat people to its lovely harbour, to seaborne restaurants like none you've ever seen, to the endless maritime movement of a great sea city, an ocean crossroads devoted to the pursuit of profit. One of Hong Kong's waterfolk landed here from Shanghai to become the world's biggest ship owner, though few people have ever heard of him, let alone seen him in the flesh. YK Pao, king of the supertankers, owns more shipping than Onassis or Niarchos, getting on for 10 million tons. He's so busy you can only confront him at 7 a.m. on the beach when it's far too cold for a non-water person.
You should join me.
Yes, I should another morning.
The water is not cold. You see so many people swimming.
Is it true that you only see your tankers once, and that's when they're launched? You never see them again?
Oh no. Then sometime I visit if I'm in United Kingdom and if they call UK port, then I probably, if I have time, go to visit.
You see, to most people, a ship is something rather romantic. Now, to you, it just sounds like an entry in a balance sheet.
I don't know about that, but anyhow, I like ship very
You do?
much. Yes, you're very sentimental, you know. I like ship, yes.
Now, what has been your policy, Mr. Powell, that's enabled you to expand in such a way?
Well, I think that's is a good investment.
You're basically a banker. You're more of a banker than a ship owner.
You're right. You're right. I was a banker. You see, I still have lots of my bank knowledge. It's in my background. Yeah.
What decided you to become a ship owner and not a banker?
Well, it's very difficult to say. That was many years ago. In that time, I thought this is a very interesting business, so I made it mine. I would go to shipping.
Some of your ships, I believe, are being built in Britain, are they not?
That's right. We have ship built at Harlem Wharf and Swan Hunter. And we have 2 ships already built by Scott shipyard. That's about 20,000 tons already delivered, yes.
Why do you go there and not the much more convenient Japanese shipyards?
Well, in that time, and they still offer attractive price and good terms.
And what's happened since then?
Well, now it's a little bit difficult, and they can't offer me fixed price and no more other good terms. Yeah.
So where are you going now then?
I think mostly Japan.
What is it, do you think, Mr. Powell, that makes you such a successful ship owner?
What have you got that other people should have?
Oh, that's very difficult for me to answer. But I think basically the shipping business, you have to work more harder than any other body. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel 24 hours not enough.
YK Powell's supertankers are chartered before they're even built, let alone launched, so this buoyant waterman will never be caught with immovable assets again.
Lovely. You should join me. That's much better than to stand there.
Another successful Hong Kong boatman, C.Y. Tong, owns more than 80 ships and bought himself the largest liner ever built, the Queen Elizabeth. He's more sentimental about his ships than Mr. Powell, so I persuaded him to join me on a visit to his latest project, a cruise ship and C.Y.'s university.
It looks to me as though you've got much more than 2 months' work to do on her.
Yes, but I think with this labor force now, it's all right because main job is in her engine room, the boiler room. I think
Is it?
her side is concerned. It's not a problem.
What about the ship's furnishings and that sort of thing?
Well, mostly furniture still in order, but we are going to add on many new carpets with peacock. We are going to have a peacock lounge, and we are going to have a lunar bar.
And you're going to have it this
And,
colour?
Yeah, this is a beautiful color. Yes,
It's
purple
impossible
color.
to believe.
Yeah.
The aging Queen's getting a sort of facelift from 1,200 workmen and 35 tons of paint on her weather-worn flanks. CY's reactivated 6 of her 12 boilers, and he's recruiting a crew of 900. Yet when we went aboard, she was not, let's face it, quite as shipshape and Bristol fashion as once upon a time. The Kiwi was bought at the knockdown price of £1,300,000 by Mr. Tung when her first purchasers, who'd paid 3 times that, went broke. Then sailing here, her boilers blew up, so what with one thing and another, she's cost him a packet.
$12 million. Already reached $12 million. With $3 million to bring her here from rather Aruba and boiler machinery, and we spent another $6 million. That's all, as I said, beyond our original budget, but not beyond my original expectation.
When you say you could foresee all the plans, could you foresee 1,000 tons of rubbish, for example?
Yeah, that's of course many items we do not anticipate, so I must correct. But many detail work, of course, it's rather difficult to foresee that, as you say.
But it really doesn't look to me as though she's going to be ready to sail on time.
Basically, I think she can leave in January, and because our dry dock reserved in Yokosuka, U.S. Navy base in Japan, have to be punctuated, otherwise we will have problems. So
Yes.
I think ship got to be there by early February and completed by end of February.
I was being told that you'd had some sort of labour problems here. You've had strikes in even.
Well, very for a short period, about 3-5 days, and for something which really beyond our control, because they want to play poker or Chinese dice, then people reported to police department they are gambling, and 1 or 2 men arrested. Then they say, we did it. And we never say a word to police department, but they say we did it. So as a result, they strike for a few days. So that's only a matter of, like a storm from a teacup. That's,
We normally in England, we have most strikes you can think of, but I don't
Yes.
think anyone's ever been on strike for
Yeah.
gambling yet.
From our side of the world, Chinese workers may seem docile enough, but theirs is a communist-led union, so all the 1,200 workmen insisted on going miles back to shore for their lunch, which meant they spent 5 hours each day just sailing to and from work.
Their working time only 3 hours a day, so that's a big problem. And we even offer some Cantonese opera to attract them to stay on board, but since this is their tradition, they want to go back to shore for
lunch.
So apparently that doesn't work. So
But you offered them the Cantonese opera to keep them here during the lunch hour.
yeah, that's it. And I did personally give a little talk to all these workmen. I say, to work on board that ship is not only to make the ship, you know, navigable and to add beauty to the ship, but also you are doing a certain meaningful purpose for education, as the eventual ship will be used as a university. So I think all workmen should work hard.
The character of a boatman who'd gamble millions on an elderly transatlantic queen, assessed by a friend also from Shanghai, the editor K.T. Wu.
I mean, I think it's foolish, but I'm sure, I'll be wrong. Because if I didn't think it was wrong, I would be C.Y. Dong and not just K.T. Wu, running or trying to run a newspaper. The whole business is completely fantastic and it's unbelievable. One thing, which is a completely unweighable factor: imagination, daringness, and of course, tremendous good luck. The ability to utilize that thing and not be scared. This is an awful scary business, with the shipping charter price going up and down and everything. And if I was in the business, I'd be scared to death. Sleepless nights, nervous breakdown. I'm always tempted to Ellen to write him off and say, well, see why you're being silly. Doing a thing like this. But I'm glad that he, he's got his folly, on the Queen Elizabeth, rather than something else.
To own the Queen Elizabeth was a dream of your father's, but old men's dreams are not always economic.
We feel that in our market research that there is a tremendous requirement and tremendous interest in the passenger cruising. And we feel that we can make a go of it if we have a proper administration, we have the dedication, and we have because of our cheaper labor cost.
Of course, there's a shipping recession at the moment. There's more than 3 million tons idle. That's something like 310 ships. Is this a good time to take over 83,000 rusty tons of Queen Elizabeth?
Queen Elizabeth, or the Seawise University, is by no means a rusty old ship. She is a beautiful ship. There is some rundown in the condition of the ship because of negligence by a previous owner. But these are problems that we can easily overcome.
In some ways, the whole thing seems like a mad fantasy. There is something he's always wanted to have, now he's got it. Yes. But when you see it, it's like you've got to float the Waldorf Astoria, haven't you? Yes. And you've got your skipper is from a tanker, your crew is from goodness knows where, your stewards are being trained in a Hong Kong hotel, you've got a chef from a Hong Kong hotel. It doesn't really sound very professionally nautical.
It has always been his dream to combine his profession with education. Now that he has achieved so much in life, he wants to promote a better understanding among people, and I think this is a very good way to do it. We hope it will work out.
With 100 workers and engineers living and eating aboard, one of the liner's kitchens, which once fed 2,000 passengers in grand style, was reactivated in a rather basic Chinese way. This tragic queen was already fully booked for her very first cruise, a 12-day voyage out of Yokohama in mid-March with 1,500 members of a Japanese society as passengers. And, wretched irony, it was the Stop Smoking Society. The sea is cruel and unforgiving, as all waterfolk know. There are no second chances. Not even for a queen. So two seaborne ways of life end. The rich way of the giant transatlantic liner, the poor, picturesque way of the boat people. Today it's all ashore, or going ashore.